Okay, well, I am super excited to welcome my guest today, Jayson Gaddis, to the show. And we kind of do the same thing, different but similar, where we're both super interested in relationships and relatedness, conflict resolution, effective communication, and basically up-leveling the love in your life. So he is the founder of a beautiful podcast that I love so much called The Smart Couple podcast, and also a relationship school, which is super cool, where there's different elements of the school, which we'll talk about later. But welcome, Jayson.
Thank you, Terry. Good to be here. Psyched to see you again.
Me too. It's so fun. Okay, so why don't we start by talking a little bit about your story, and then we'll get into sort of the male-female frame of conflict resolution and the things that you've seen. What I love about your work, of course, is that one thing is that you're a heterosexual male. And so I really do get insights into how you changed your relationship and how you got into this. Because men and women, I have to say, Venus and Mars, there is something to that, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
So shall we start with your story?
All right. Cool. I'll keep it down to the very short, condensed version. So yeah, Terry, the short of my conditioning basically as a man started when I was a boy, basically being conditioned out of my feelings. So what that had me, I was a pretty sensitive, emotional, empathic kid. And so when I started dating women in my early, really late adolescence, I would reject the very thing I was rejecting in me, which was women who were sensitive, emotional, and empathic. You could call it my feminine side, right? If you want to be simplistic about it.
Yep.
And so I would date women. Finally, when I figured out girls, I was about 20, and the first layer, which was to get them to like me. The next layer was like, how do I do a relationship? I had no idea. As soon as they would want to talk about feelings and, hey, can we have a talk? And what's going on with you? What's inside your head? Like, what are you thinking about right now, honey? That kind of stuff. I would just push them away because that felt like they were being sensitive, needy, emotional, empathic. And I was like, gross. I don't want that. And so I would push them away, make them wrong, fire them, and start dating another woman. Mm-hmm. And this went on for about a decade of that pattern. Very short-lived, 2-month, 3-month, 6-month at the most relationships, until finally I was sitting in a car in a Whole Foods parking lot with this woman, breaking up with her. I've been trying to avoid breaking up with her for months because I was too much of a coward to just say, we're done. Mm-hmm. And she said, I finally got the words out, and she was like, okay, why? And I was like, well, my first thought was because of you, but really what I knew was something else was going on with me. And I finally was able to admit it in the car. Like, I was like, I think I got a problem. And she's like, yeah, I think so. Yeah. And she suggested that I go to counseling. And I didn't even know really what counseling was, but I was like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea, which was weird. So in that car, in that moment, I was having a very pivotal moment in my life where I was turning a corner. The pain was high enough that I was starting to go, maybe I'm the problem. And when I started asking that question, my life completely changed. And I drove away. That breakup was fairly amicable. And I drove away feeling empowered because for the first time in my life, I'd taken responsibility. And then I was on a mission to learn about relationships and my problem. I wanted to fix my problem. So I went and studied psychology for 3 years, met my wife in grad school, and the rest is pretty much history.
Okay, so let's go back to, love that story. Thank you for sharing. But there's something about when you pivoted in that story, it was the moment that you looked in.
Yeah.
Is that right?
That's right.
And what was that experience like for you?
I mean, it was completely unfamiliar. It was, I felt a wave of energy. I was dreading that day, that moment in the car. I was like I was procrastinating for weeks trying to break up with this woman. And in that car, in that moment, something dramatically changed. I mean, I literally drove away feeling like a different person.
So so you got into therapy.
Yep. Oh
And
yeah.
then can you tell us
Lots of
then,
therapy.
lots of them, me too, like just decades of therapy.
Yeah.
And how did the therapeutic process for you and what you learned, how did then that lead you to your wife? Because you are married
Uh-huh.
and you have two children.
Yeah.
And how long have you been married? 10 years?
11 years, going on
11
11
years.
years. Yeah.
Okay. So can you bring us on the journey more and then we'll talk about other things?
Yeah, for sure. Uh, so we met in grad school, and therapy was the thing that sort of opened up my ability to feel my feelings that I had basically stuffed since childhood, and became a typical guy. You know, I was in a fraternity. I didn't feel my feelings. I was kind of macho. I had a tough exterior. I was athletic. Um, Yet underneath my shell, I was insecure, afraid, very sensitive. And so, um, grad school and therapy started to, where I basically was like studying myself for 3 years straight. I started to de-armor, you know, the walls started coming down. I started crying for the first time in my life, hitting pillows. You know, I did all kinds of therapy, gestalt therapy and reenactment and constellation work. And like, you name it, I probably tried it.
Love it.
And met my wife, and I was used to dating women who were more emotionally, let's see, they were more, just the easiest label is like insecure and younger than me,
Mm-hmm.
because I had a rescuer part of me that would like to try to make them feel better, because then I got to be kind of this hero, and then I would basically leave as soon as they needed stuff. Well, when I met my wife, she was like the first woman I'd met. I was used to sort of dating girls,
Yeah.
and she was a woman, and I actually didn't know what to do with her. I was like, whoa. So at first I wasn't turned on. I was intimidated.
Right.
And I was like, whoa. And so we started dating eventually after about a year after we met. And she even pursued me. I didn't pursue her because I was like, how do I do this? It's unfamiliar.
Right.
And we started to learn how to communicate. You know, we'd fight for hours sometimes, and two therapists processing over and over and over and over and over again,
Mm-hmm.
going in circles many times, many nights. We started to find a better way. And then, you know, we had children and new stressors and new challenges, and we just kept having to get more efficient. And I was now a therapist, seeing lots of clients and starting to learn more effective ways of communicating and listening, and stuff they actually didn't teach me in grad school.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There wasn't one relationship class I took in grad school. So that was interesting. And yeah, I just started running groups and experimenting, you know, and then eventually founded the relationship school.
Right on. What is so interesting is that you start going down this path, and you know, in all my courses, there's always this place that I talk about, which is called the in-between. So we realize, well, this is messed up. Like, I can't keep doing that. Like, falling in love with chicks and then not wanting them to be emotional and then ditching them after it gets to this certain mark or whatever. Okay. So you can no longer do that. Then there's the in-between place where you're like, well, I can't do that because I'm too healthy, but I don't know the new thing yet. Exactly. I'm just like in purgatory,
Yeah.
like floating.
Yeah.
Right. In this emotional place of, I'm too healthy for this, and yet I don't know where I'm going. So it kind of all makes sense that you were in grad school, which helped you do a lot of processing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like, I mean, it is like therapy boot camp, because we both did grad school. So we know what that is intense. I did a very intense program that mine was actually 16 months.
Wow.
At
That's
NYU.
Pressure cooker. Wow.
Oh my God, forget it. You're like, it's like being in therapy 24/7, basically.
Yeah.
But you do learn about yourself. So now and your wife is still a therapist, yeah?
Yep. Yep.
Okay, so you still are two therapists who are married, have children and doing your thing. What do you find? Because I want to talk about conflict resolution and sort of the male-female elements that come into stuff naturally. If people aren't two therapists or aren't like, my situation, one therapist and whatever, let's talk about conflict resolution from your experience, your point of view, from the relationship school, and why is it so complicated?
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah, it is. It's like one of the hardest things for people, right? Is how do we work out our shit together? And a lot of people don't make it because we're not formally taught any techniques. It's just sort of assumed we figured out. And then on the playground, kids are taught, I got in a fight in 6th grade, and the next day I came back and the teacher said, I heard you got in a fight. Okay, Jayson, you apologize to Corey. Corey, you apologize to Jayson. I'm sorry. Okay. And then we moved on. I was like, my system was like traumatized. And sorry is what we're going to do to help me relax? I don't think so.
Right.
So, a lot of us are taught sorry is sort of the way to resolve conflict and forgive and all that stuff. And there's actually, it's a lot more complicated, but I think I'm trying to simplify it as much as I can for people. And so much of it comes down to the body and listening. And I like to teach what we teach at the relationship school is a term called LUFU, and it stands for listening until someone feels understood. I can't remember if we've talked about that before. And then
I don't think so.
that's just it's like my wife taught me that, like, look, I don't understand you until she says I feel understood is kind of a rule of thumb we have. And then there's that, the kind of technique-y part, which is just learning how to listen to someone, validating their experience, right? But then there's like what my body, which is like a scared animal, when we're under conflict, and her body are doing to each other, which is like another scared animal. How do we calm these two scared animals down? And those are things like we use a calm tone of voice. We soften our gaze. We move toward and away in a way that's non-threatening. We put our hand on our leg or shoulder. All these things can calm the scared animal. And I think when people take a view of, right, I'm married to a scared animal and a little kid, a little girl or boy, it softens us a little bit. Like, oh, right, okay, I'm dealing with this thing over there that needs a little more gentleness right now.
Yeah, which is interesting because in order to be able to do that, to be able to be the one who brings more gentleness, you can't be in your scared child with a shit ton of unresolved childhood injuries, because you won't be able to. You'll be so activated by the conflict. So I do think that there's something about, Vic and I have like a little agreement sort of that, only one person can crack up at a time. So if I'm cracking up, then it's my turn to crack up. And that no matter how stressed out he may be about me cracking up, because it's funny, that is the thing that would, because I'm almost never cracking up, that if I'm even remotely to the point where I might be cracking up, Vic is very much like on high alert, like, wait a minute, what is happening? Because I could be upset, but not like, wow, I'm really losing it. That happens once every multiple years, let's say.
Sure.
And so I think that there has to be an agreement or, that's just one sort of silly but effective agreement that Vic and I have about, you can't pile on, if one person is having a thing, it can't be about now my day. Like if Vic is having a thing, I just let it be about Vic's thing. There'll be time for me later. Like,
right. We're going to take turns here.
Exactly. And with the listening, I wanted to go back to something that you said with, saying, learning that you and Corey could just say, we're sorry, according to the fourth grade teacher, and that all would be well. Again, there's a bypassing element of the apology. And it's so interesting. I personally I've never in my life I've never said the words, that person owes me an apology. I haven't, because an apology without me understanding that they understand, like Lufu, I need someone to listen to what happened to me until I feel understood. You being sorry. I remember when I was younger, having boyfriends in the past who would just be sorry because they wanted to be over. And I, in those moments in that relationship, became the woman who says, what exactly are you sorry for? Do you even know? Because I felt like he did not know. And that was, to me, this, I don't want your apology. I want you to understand me, and I want you to want to understand me.
Right.
And I do think that that is pretty female. I think men want and need to be understood as well, but most men are not taught that they need that, or that the language of that. What are your thoughts on?
Yeah, I agree in that most men are not taught this, but I think underneath every man's armor is a man who actually has a huge heart and a desire to understand, and a willingness and an ability. Some women will label men as he's not able to, he's incapable. It's like, I don't think so. He just hasn't gone to that depth in himself yet. But men can still be walled off in their heart and do a good job listening.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to go in and be more effective the more us guys can get present in ourselves and really try to understand you and have it make sense to us in our world of like how we make meaning in the world. Like it doesn't have to, and again, validating, people confuse this and think it means you're right and I'm wrong. It's like, that's not validation. To validate my wife is just, honey, that makes sense to me that you're feeling that way. And that's music to a woman's ears usually, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I can do that. And then she might say, well, how does it make sense to you? Like you're saying, because she wants to know, like, oh, well, it makes sense to me because of, and I put the pieces together of the puzzle. Well, because yesterday you got hurt and then that thing happened with us last week and then your childhood history. So it makes sense that you're upset right now.
Yeah.
And then I can soften a little bit. But if I don't have the desire or the skill to do that, and I just label myself a guy, well, I'm just a guy. That's just not how I work. I think that's, I think you're not, you're selling yourself out. So I tell women to challenge their men to learn how to listen even deeper and try and know that, like, say, I know there's a deeper guy in there that can listen to me and validate my experience. And I want that because that
Yeah.
helps me relax and open to you kind of thing.
You know, though, Jayson, what's interesting about this is that there's truth. I mean, I have 3 grown sons who I think are super evolved, and they definitely know their feelings from a Frankfurter. Like they certainly
Cool.
know their feelings and listen to their wives and have great partnerships. But there's something about what I wanted to talk about was secondary gain. That there's something about a woman saying, well, you know, he's just not, you know, you know how men are, right? You know,
Yeah.
that's just the
Yeah.
way they are,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't matter, you know, he's not capable
Mm-hmm.
because that's not the way they're wired. Let's just say
Yeah.
that when I always will have a woman if they're in therapy with me, question these limiting beliefs that she's projecting onto the spouse and look at what's in it for her, for him to stay in that limiting box that
You
she's
got it.
drawn, right?
Yep.
So the secondary gain, right, which is the unobvious gain that we get by staying stuck. And so
Yeah.
much of the time, secondary gain, as you know, is this unconscious experience. And these are questions, and listeners and people who are watching this on YouTube, if you've seen this before, you know, I'll give you the questions quickly, just because people go, secondary gain, what is that? All you need to do is ask yourself, what do I get to not do, not feel, not face, not experience by staying stuck? So if it's someone who says they want to lose weight, but they do everything in the world and they just can't seem to, when we ask these questions,
Mm-hmm.
what do I get to not do, not feel, not experience, not say, basically, by staying stuck, by staying overweight? Oh, she doesn't have to feel vulnerable because she won't date because she's too overweight. So there's a protection in that. She doesn't have to keep her word and go to the gym every day. That
Yeah.
requires energy, effort, intention. It's a pain in the ass, right? But we
Yeah.
do it if we want to lose weight. So there's when you, as you know, when you can get to that secondary gain, a lot of times I would find the women in my practice I say, well, what if he was capable? What if he is capable? And you are, as you just said, selling him short, selling him out, so to speak.
Yeah. Because you're scared.
Yes, that's exactly right. If you are selling him short, why are you doing it? And it comes back to, I'm afraid. And there's so much about change. And I wonder if you see this in the relationship school, and I know probably in your own relationship, but seeing clients where, you know, fear of success and fear of failure are basically 2 sides of the same coin, and that coin is fear of change.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you see around people being afraid to change, even if it's in a way that they say they want?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot in there that you said. I love the questions and the observation. I love those 4 questions, by the way. Those are awesome.
Take it.
So I want to rewind that part and write those down.
Mm-hmm.
So another way of asking that, by the way, is that I ask clients is, what are you getting out of this? You know, what is your side and what are you getting out of this? Well, it's the same basically thing, right? I get to stay over here stuck and I don't have to open my heart. I
Mm-hmm.
can just continue to complain
Right.
about my partner. And sort of the focus is over there, keeps the focus off me,
Yep.
where all my shame is. So now we get to the shame part. And I'd rather blame you for not making our relationship great than deal with my own shame and fear of why I won't and can't open my heart and all my past hurt and my injuries around love and the ways I make myself wrong and play small in my life. That's way too scary for me to face that and feel that and deal with that. So I'd rather just stay up here and put the focus on him and why he's not listening to me. Yeah. So shame is absolutely a driver of, not only secrets, but just the deep, the deep pattern of blame that people stay stuck in over and over.
So how do you help people shed their shame?
Well, I love this. I love shame as a conversation. I see shame as helpful. And the reason shame is helpful is because it's feedback. When I feel shame to me, just if we define it real quick, it means that I've done something that's out of integrity with my own standards. Guilt is something I've done that is out of integrity with your standards. And oftentimes people are subordinating to other people's standards all over the place instead of their own, which is why people are walking around feeling so guilty about how they're living their life. This piece of chocolate, that thing, that shortcut, that TV show I watched. It's like, who fucking cares? It's your life. But shame and guilt help us wake up and feel bad, and feeling bad motivates us to change. So if you're open to growth and development and change, shame is on your side. Shame's got your back. Because shame is terrible to feel. It's an awful experience, so that you get the fuck out of there and take action. And so one of the ways to clear shame and resolve shame is simply to go, all right, what are the benefits to me feeling this shame? And the primary one is to help me get out from under unrealistic expectations I have of myself and set more realistic goals and aspirations for yourself, so that you're not setting the bar too high. Because and it also gets us out of comparison. I compare myself to you. What's that?
Compare and despair.
Exactly. If I can live my life on Facebook or Instagram and I compare myself to you, and I'm going to probably feel bad a lot, because there's always going to be someone that's better than me, has more money than me, that's sexier than me, blah, blah, blah. And those are all things that I can feel shame about. But I'm comparing myself to a fantasy. So shame is like when we compare ourselves to a fantasy of who we should be, rather than who we actually, like living into who we actually are.
It's interesting. I have a different take on shame, so let's talk about it.
Oh, great. Bring it.
It's like the easiest distinction for me is to say that guilt is something we experience. So guilt says, I think I did something wrong. Right? But you bring another element of guilt in, which I'm going to add to my repertoire, because it's interesting. When someone else is guilting you, that is, and if you're allowing them, then you are now being like, wait, should I feel guilty? I don't know. Like, they're acting like I should, so maybe I should, as opposed to, so the simplistic thing is guilt says I did something wrong, maybe. Shame says I am something wrong.
Yeah.
So the work that I do around shame, and I think that there's value to both and both ways of looking at it, but shame is such a low vibration, right? It's like the lowest vibration emotion that we can have, especially if it stays. And for so many of my clients, and 90% are women, right? Have been women over the many years.
Yeah.
It's so far down in their subconscious or unconscious, so much of it, their whole life is driven by the shame that they haven't healed.
Yeah.
And it's like the things that, if you look at what does it produce? It produces perfectionism. It produces workaholism. It produces this bar that you're talking about, this insanely high bar that there's absolutely no way to do anything but fail. Because you could do that for a period of time until you get an autoimmune disorder, or like I did, cancer or whatever. Like, there will be a physiological cost to that process. But I do think that the motivation that you're talking about, regardless of how you define it, is there. And it's a reframe, a very powerful reframe that you basically offered us, to not look at it like, well, then there's that shame and the end. Like it's there and there's nothing I can do. It's like, I feel this. Let this propel me to do something different, to resolve it. Why I think that, guilt, if it is your own guilt, let's say, is a perfectly fine emotion, unless it eats you up every day, unless it's your driving force in life, because it's like hey, maybe that was a fucked up thing to do. Maybe you should make amends. Maybe you do owe someone an apology, or maybe you would do it differently next time,
Yeah. Maybe you are out of integrity. That wasn't cool.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we have to look at it not like people, when they come into therapy, they want to get rid of it. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, well, I mean, but if we just get rid of it, like your teacher had you just say, sorry, there's something to surface about getting rid of it. Yeah. Right. Don't we want to look at it and go, should this be here? Is this value? Is this a valuable feeling? Because all feelings are valuable. I had someone recently in one of the groups say, oh, I was, spent the day and I was feeling, and she said, I was feeling, after interacting with her husband, I was feeling, and she said like fake guilt or something like that, like a false emotion. And I was like, no, it's definitely not a false emotion. I don't think it's, because if whatever you're feeling, you're actually feeling. The move, right? What's the move there? Question why you're feeling it. If someone else, as you said before, is trying to shove their guilt up your ass, you can choose to bend over or not to be gross, but is it not the truth? Like this is from your perspective. You think you had the assumption that I was going to do something, or that I didn't do what I said I was going to do. Let's talk about that, because I may have a different view on that. So I definitely am into questioning if the guilt that you're experiencing, so much of that has to do, let's go back to the couple thing, has to do with a relationship with bad communication, with dysfunctional communication, with their constantly misfiring. Yeah. Want to talk about communication?
Yeah, I do. I want to add one piece to the shame guilt pile before.
Please do.
So the question I have to ask with the frames that you offered, which I love, is wrong according to who? That's to me the next question. Okay, you did something wrong according to who? You are wrong according to who? And when you dive down into self-inquiry, you'll find that there's going to be a standard or a message you got from someone somewhere that needs to be updated. And again, that's really helpful to go in and examine some of these old frames about how you should be or shouldn't be according to who? Who's fucking got their authority all over your, you? Who are you subordinating to in your life? Unconsciously, consciously, that's maybe they're dead, your dead parents, or your church pastor from when you were 10 that you're not even part of that church anymore.
Right.
But you're still in that frame. And it's like, again, that's why guilt and shame can be so helpful to get out of those little cages, into a much bigger world.
I love the whole idea of according to who. Like that's a very tangible question that you can ask. In the work I do, I lead it to that's, it's downloaded blueprints, right? So it's all about questioning. Like, maybe you started with that internal paradigm unconsciously, but now that we know where it is, let's look at it and decide, is this true for you? Do you want it to be true for you? And I think that choice has so much to do with it, realizing that you have a choice. Your values are your values, your personal values, like what you believe, it's like a personal mission statement, Yeah,
you're an adult now. You can actually identify your own values, not keep subordinating to other people's. Yeah, and this is great because, back to the communication question, because I think shame and guilt are probably at the root of a lot of miscommunication fires, because we are not standing in our power and communicating from a place of agency and authority. We're communicating and collaboration. We're communicating from a place of shame. So when I'm in shame, and again, most people are like, I'm not in shame. I don't feel any shame. If you're blaming someone in your life, I guarantee you I can find shame somewhere in there, because that's your compensation. You're compensating with blame, making someone else wrong. So, and this is the bulk of people's communication snags is blame, as you know, like just pointing the finger. So like, I don't know about you, but it seems like one of the first steps is just personal responsibility. What is my part? Honey, here's my part. I mean, it's so disarming when someone goes, well, yeah, here's what I did or didn't do. Like, this is where I dropped the ball. This is where I raised my voice. It's like, oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
But we're so you focused, right? It's like,
Yeah.
Even now, like I catch myself, it's just like, well, honey, you, and it's just like, that's going to go nowhere.
You're like, that place is just not great.
It's just like,
Right, exactly. And the end of that conversation.
yeah.
I always say that people are 50% of every relationship that they're in. Like, so you comprise exactly 50% of your marriage, as I comprise exactly 50% of my marriage, because
Mm-hmm.
that would be the only thing that is possible, regardless. Even when people really behave badly, even when you're talking about, abusive situations, there is a 50%, and the 50% of someone who's afraid to leave is them staying. And again, it's not blame. I get like some shit from domestic violence people about this as if I'm blaming the victim. I'm
Yeah,
not
I
at
agree.
all. I'm talking about what's real, though, that's real. So when you look at your life, and if you are that person who's like, well, that I would never have gotten fired from that job if it wasn't for that asshole boss, and I wouldn't have had that terrible thing happen if that wasn't that asshole boyfriend, and if it wasn't that asshole friend who betrayed me, and this, like, everyone in the world can't be an asshole but you.
Yeah.
Like, when it's your life, you just have to go, okay, I'm the common denominator in all of these experiences. And it's so liberating to just
It's
go,
so freeing,
yes.
so empowering.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so with you. Like, and I would say we all have a victim, and we all will have a victim in us the rest of our lives. Anytime we go get hurt, we go right to the victim spot, and that's appropriate and right on.
Mm-hmm.
It hurts. Ow! I want to rescue her. Help me get out of this painful situation. That's so, yeah, hell yes. That's how human beings work. But why stay there? Right? And some of us can get, because a lot of us get something out of that, right? Back to your questions. It's like, what are you getting out of this? Oh, right. I get a rescuer. I get lots of help. I get attention. I get this and that and the other. And again, I'm with you. I'm not blaming the victim here. I'm saying victim, to become an author, which is to turn that V into an A, you've got to take personal responsibility. You got to say, I need to pick myself up. No one's going to, ultimately this enabling that everyone's doing with me and validating me and stuff, it's keeping me where I am. How can I take a bigger view to become a stronger human being? I mean, I'm of the view, I'm guessing you are, is that these challenges come on to help me grow stronger and to become a bigger, better person. And they also become a part of my purpose in life.
Mm-hmm.
So I need challenges in order to grow, and I want them. And I will be a victim at times, and I'm going to try my best to like move out of that into a place of empowerment.
Right. I think the recognition, though, that like that feeling when someone has wronged you, those are real experiences where feeling victimized when you are is a stop on the healing. It's not a destination, though. So remember, like when that train stops, just stop for a moment. And then when the train is pulling out, get on and keep moving down the path of figuring out what is it that I need to learn. And this is all an honor and a privilege. Anyone, if you've ever had anything wrong with you in life, right? Being sick, I'm a cancer survivor. I've, had lots of stuff like this in my family. It's a privilege. We are in a very small percentage of people in the world who get this much time to think about their mental health. Most people are just trying to fucking survive.
I'm with you. Yeah. Amen to the privilege. Yep. Of working on ourselves.
Yes. I wanted to talk about something that you and I are doing together. Shouldn't we talk about this, and then I'll release this early enough so that...
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah. I'm super stoked about this, by the way.
All right,
we got to get clear on that. We got to make sure we're pinned down on the dates before you give a date, and let's talk about it right here.
Yeah. We are pinned down though, aren't we?
We'll find out. Keep going.
I'm going to pull up the email while we're talking. Anyway.
Okay.
So Jayson called me and said, hey, well, you didn't call me. You emailed me and said, hey, I'm doing this thing. Want to do this thing. And you know what this thing is? And it's so funny because I am actually doing my own thing. I actually have a mini course about the holidays. Mine is Holiday SOS Guide use boundaries to create healthy holidays, like so you actually have fun and they don't suck how they can.
Yeah.
And you came up with, and what are we doing? Calling it a holiday hotline?
Yeah. The family drama hotline.
Oh, that's good. I like it. That's even better. So tell people about it, and then I'll be confirming the date in the meantime.
Okay. Yeah. So Terri, I consider you a friend now, and it's just fun to jam with you. And I was like, man, Terry's going to be really good at this because one of the things people suck at during the holidays is boundaries. And you're like, really, you have your boundary frames really clear. And I want people to learn from you that are on my list. And all of us, most of us at some point in our life have struggled during the holidays with family stuff. And it's a relational landmine, can be, and it can be also really beautiful and powerful. So I thought it would be fun for Terri and I to do this holiday family drama hotline to help you navigate Thanksgiving. And if it carries over into Christmas, helping you through Christmas, it will, if you actually write down what we say and you actually put and implement what we're going to share with you that night on the call. So it's kind of an SOS line. Like some of you are struggling with in-laws, or you don't know how to show up, or you keep saying yes when you really mean no. Your dad's got, just all over you about something. You have a sibling that's super fucking annoying at the dinner table, and you're just like, you're anxious and freaked out. Okay. Whatever the anxiety is, we're going to help you calm that down. And so you're going to come into Thanksgiving Day feeling way more empowered, like the mature person in the room, that can actually handle the bullshit going on. We're going to call upon you to step into that role more.
Yes. And we're also going to give you tricks and strategies of how to avoid talking to that wasted, inappropriate uncle. Like we've got you. Like it's not just be mature. Yes, be mature, and be crafty as well.
Yeah.
Because it's also your holiday, and you're not Mother Teresa, and you don't have to make it perfect for everyone.
Yeah.
But in order to go in, Jayson and I both have a bunch of great ideas as psychotherapists, knowing that this time of year, it can be very, very stressful, can be very depressing for people, and it's overwhelming. So we're going to give you like this boost of actionable strategies that you can use, but also just a little bit of our own magic dust and loving vibes and encircling you with energy and power so that you actually become the director of your holidays.
Yeah.
As opposed to being like a bit player, right, in the movie of your holiday life.
Yeah.
Perhaps you can be the star and the director of that experience.
Yeah. So that you can like go into Black Friday or the weekend or the following week feeling actually empowered and like more confident because you actually did well. You stood up for yourself. You had your own back. Maybe you had your in-laws back or your wife or husband's back. And it just feels good. Like we're going to try to help you get there. And it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yep. I'm so psyched. So what we said in the email, I believe that we're doing it the Tuesday before Thanksgiving at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is 7 p.m. Mountain Time, because that's where Jayson's located.
Yep.
So for my East Coast babies, it's 9 p.m. And for my West Coast babies, it is 6 p.m. And so it's going to be a webinar, and don't worry, we're going to be sending out info. You'll be able to sign up. We're doing it on, what are we doing?
On Zoom. Like this. Yep. Okay. So they'll see you and I, boom, and there'll be a big chat box, and we'll be able to potentially bring people on live. We'll also be broadcasting it live on Facebook.
Oh yeah. And I'm going to try to do it on Insta too, if I can figure out how. But anyway, It's going to be super groovy, and we're really excited. So that was our little pitch for what we're going to be doing. And that would be the actual date. I'm going to look at it right now.
Right. November.
That 20. Is November
3rd, is it? Let's see. I'm pulling up my cal too here.
Yep, it is the 20th actually.
Yeah, right.
Because
20th. Yep,
the 22nd. Yep, and it's in my calendar. Right there we go, hotline. So, bring all your family drama to us. We're going to help you.
Yep, we're going to help you real good.
We're going to help you real good. And actually, the sign-up link will be with this. Because by the time this goes out, it'll be already happening.
Yeah. Yep. And we'll have that up soon. By the time you're listening to this, it'll be up. So you just click the link in the show notes here, I'm guessing.
Yep. Show notes and on YouTube as well, because people can watch this. Many people are listening to it. It's going to be all places. We'll send out emails about it. So we're super excited. Tell us one last thing, and then I feel like we've taken enough of your time today. For you right now, what are you most lit up about in the way of human relatedness? Like what you're doing with the school, and like, what are you most lit up about?
Yeah, thanks. Well, other than the lab of my own marriage and family, I'm often lit up about that. Just like the constant learning of as kids grow and how to deal with them now and how my wife and I navigate each other dealing with them. So I'm always lit up about that. But within the school, I'm really lit up about our training and how we train people to have amazing, empowered long-term relationships, and then also how we train. I want to reach 10 million families and 1 million young people. So that's kind of burly. I'm going to need a lot of help. So one of the ways I'm getting help is to train people to become relationship coaches and give them the skills and the superpowers to, especially if you're a natural born helper, to actually get paid helping people and start to fine tune it so it's not so enabling and rescue-y, and it's more like challenging and confronting, but also very loving. So that's, we start our next round in January, and I'm super pumped about that.
So can anyone like do the train the trainer thing if people are just interested and maybe they just want to do a deeper dive for their own life?
Yeah, it's open to anybody, but we have a prerequisite, which is you got to take my relationship as a path course, or you got to do the DPIR course, which stands for Deep Psychology of Intimate Relationships, which is a 9-month training. It's pretty burly. And you have to have you got to apply. It's pretty hard to get into we call it the RC1, Relationship Coach Level 1 training.
Yep.
So it's open to anybody, but you also have to be really clear and you have to take the necessary steps to get into that course.
Well, I love that because, my feeling is if people are motivated, they'll do that. And the ones who aren't, won't. And then then they don't even make it in, which is kind of great, Yeah.
And we get really, really a high caliber people and we give them clients to work with, real people, and we supervise them and watch them. And it's amazing to see people get served. So like couples and individuals are getting served and people are learning how to become coaches.
Awesome. So how can people find you? Tell us.
Relationshipschool.net is where we're at. And there's just a whole host of things. The podcast is on there. That's obviously the Smart Couple on iTunes also.
Great. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for spending a bunch of time with me today. It is always a pleasure. And I'm so excited to do our little hotline together. So you guys make sure you sign up. It's going to be great.
Oh yeah. Hell yeah. I'm psyched, Terri. Thanks again.
Anytime.